Welcome to Grind and Flow, creative minds worth spending time with. I'm your host, Chuck Moore, with an episode I've been saving for a while. In order of release, this is episode 15, but I recorded the conversation early in my podcast journey at the beginning of 2024, which, oh lordy, is an eternity ago for so many reasons. But I was saving this one, wanting to give today's guest a proper place in the evolution of the show. Today's guest was one of the first names I ever scribbled on a Post-it note as someone I needed to talk to. So here we are, finally presenting my talk with producer, composer, musical director, Brandon Bush. Brandon gets around in some nifty circles. He's been part of hundreds of recordings, including many Grammy-nominated and award-winning songs. For instance, he's all over John Mayer's Room for Squares album. Brandon was also a member of Train and continues to collaborate extensively with his brother Christian Bush of Sugarland. Some of their recent handiwork can be heard in the music of rising country sensation Megan Moroney. They also find time for their ongoing projects, Dark Water and Cabin Chill, with Benji Shanks. Brandon creates music for TV, films, games, podcasts, even live theater, and you're hearing samples of Brandon's work now. I was fortunate to have worked with him during my time at Turner Classic Movies. He and Christian created some wonderful music for us, and I've kept in touch with Brandon over the years and always enjoy talking to him. There's usually plenty of music nerdetry, but also deep dive life stuff and the process of creating. In a minute, you'll hear Brandon talk about creating with intention and the inspiration he finds in the work of animator Chuck Jones. Specifically for Brandon, Jones had a clear set of rules for what could and couldn't happen in the Roadrunner Coyote universe. Brandon will share those rules and tell how they continue to inspire adaptable guidelines for his music projects. The flip side of this is, at what point is control a bad thing? In a light bulb moment for me, Brandon, a self-avowed spreadsheet person, talks about the danger of confusing control with self-care. It's deep, and he'll say it better, so wait for that part. Also in the conversation, you'll hear how Brandon totally gets the concept of grind and flow. The grind, the intention, the hard work, vibing in cahoots with the flow, intuition, happenstance. Brandon got it instantly. I'm excited how he's able to express it. So let's do this. I'm so glad to have you all along for yet another conversation I'm grateful to be a part of. Here's Brandon Bush. Brandon, thanks, man. Thanks for being here. Glad to share this to a broader audience, some of our conversations. So who are you and what is it you say you do?
Well, thank you for coming to do this. I'm excited to talk about stuff. So my name's Brandon Bush, and I'm a composer. I'm a musician. I've been a professional musician my whole adult life. But I'm also a music producer, a music writer, and then I'm a creative director basically for what is a small independent label and publishing company that I run with my brother. So I wear all the hats in the music business. So, but my career goes back. I've been doing this for many, many years and got my start out of when I graduated from college with a degree in Japanese and East Asian history, which I do not use. I, after a series of moves, ended up here in Atlanta. My brother was a professional musician here. And I fell into a scene that was recording a lot of music. That was this late 90s Atlanta, kind of the acoustic music boom that was here. And fell right into studio work and played on a record by Sean Mullins that blew up and became this kind of summertime hit that opened up a lot of doors for me. That led to working with John Mayer and his early records. I played on those. That led to working with a producer, Brendan O'Brien, who was here, did a lot of records that led to me first joining the band Train as a sideman and then as a band member. And so I kind of got on the bus and went around the world and played rock star for a series of years. Simultaneously, my brother started a country band, Sugarland. And so at some point I literally got off one bus and got on the other bus and was a member of that band for many, many years. And then I've transitioned now to, I still do that work, but mostly what I do is compose music for everything from TV shows, is how we met through work, and do work for films, independent films, do work for podcasts, and now I've become a theater guy, which was new to me, and now I both compose for and music direct live theater.
So are you famous?
I think that depends on who you ask. So there have been points in my life when I have felt, what I would call localized fame. And I think at its height, I was recognized, and still occasionally do get recognized for being a musician who was on stage connected to a band of note. I used to joke when I was in train that I wanted a hot dog stand that we carried behind the bus, and I would set it up in front of the venue. And I would go from this big finale moment, we've played our show, the people are, enthralled, sold out audiences, and we take our bows and say thank you, and kind of bask in this what is ultimately sort of a ridiculous notion that you have thousands of people applaud you at the end of your day of work, which, I wish we could sort of expand that way beyond what I do. But you just have to take it for what it is and be grateful. And then if I would put on an apron and went to the front of the venue, I could sell these people hot dogs out of context, and immediately that fame is gone. It wouldn't be this sort of situation where they're like, that's the guy, because out of context, it isn't fame. It never reached that level for me where I was sort of wrestling with that level of recognition, which was that was kind of the comfortable spot for me.
So that was good. That was the desired
my
place
toe
to
into
be.
it,
Yeah.
and then, I think the way that I would sort of understand that word now is that I've been doing this long enough, and I've been a creator, and I've been creating things, and those things, some of those things have meant things to other people. And I do have those interactions at shows, most often at shows where you have a human come up and they're just like, wow, you did this thing and that is important to me, and you have that exchange. And to me, I think that is at its best light what I would love fame to be, and it is for me.
So you're living the dream.
I mean, I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful. I've spent my entire adult life, my professional life out of college, I've been a musician, and I'm almost 51 years old, and this is still what I do for a living. Now, I'm not basking in royalties, and I don't have multiple houses, and I don't have that sort of idea you have of you don't have to work, you just create. No, I work. I create to make money. I'm trying to pay the bills. I'm trying to chase down the next opportunity that keeps the lights on. But what I do, I love.
So you said you've got certain rules when you tackle a project. Tell me a little bit about that.
So one of the challenges, especially doing the way I've positioned myself or found my natural lane, is working for other creators. So it's been very comfortable for me my whole professional life. Is I love to create, but I am not that person at the front of the bow who's like, the ship is going this way. What I love to do is sort of collaborate with people who have visions, who have sort of momentum, right? And say, how can I help facilitate this? And this is where scoring for picture is it's most obvious, right? Because there is a director, sometimes producers, and they're like, this is my thing. I want it to look this way. And often, if you've ever heard any film without music, it's so difficult to get that across without the score. The score is essential to that final project, but it is serving the visuals. Always. Its job is to help this vision come to life. So that same thing applies in almost everything I do, whether we're writing a song for something, producing some artist, even when I'm doing something that I consider sort of my own, I still have some sort of idea of what its job is to do, and it needs to serve that. So one of the things that we've incorporated, and I've really fell in love with, was Chuck Jones, who wrote the rules for the Roadrunner. And there's a very classic list of rules, I think there are 13 in his list, that he could hand to anyone in his world. So if you're writing and animating a Roadrunner cartoon, follow these rules, you'll be in my universe. These are rules like the coyote can only be harmed by his own ineptitude or Acme products, right? And so then you get to think about it, it's like, wow, the Roadrunner never hurt the coyote. And how essential that is to the truth of that universe, right? So we take this and we say, okay, when we're going to do a project, what universe are we building? What are those rules? And so they change project to project. but they become the guiding source. And I try to put 10. I put 10 on the wall. So some examples might be, we're about to start a record and we'll say, okay, we're going to consider every instrument a rhythm instrument. So no matter what music we're putting down, how is it serving the rhythm of what we're doing? And that's because we want it to feel rhythmically satisfying. Another rule we've put in place before is like we'll speed every song up until it is too fast and we'll go down a click, like go down a BPM. Then some rules are like we'll eat often, like somewhat esoteric and silly, but like what we're doing is we're putting a stake in the ground and we're saying while we are doing this work, these are our guidelines. And we'll write them down and we put them on the wall. And they'll be sitting up there and we say like, we'll break them. We'll be like, okay, wait, why are we not following rule number 5 right now? Well, because I really feel passionately that this bass line needs to go like this or whatever it is. And then you're forced to say, okay, here are the edges of my creative canvas. Here's the edge of the world that I put into place. I'm going to expand it, but for good reason, good, thoughtful, considerate reason, So it's worked for so far. I mean, there are artists and collaborators I get with who are just like, no, I do not create with boundaries, and I respect that.
So do you keep the secret little board on the side with that? Like...
Truthfully, yes, but I don't really impose it on project. When I'm collaborating with somebody who doesn't need that kind of process, then I won't impose it. But for my own mental health, I still go through the exercise.
Right.
There's a trap when you're creating because there is a zone you are aspiring to be in, a creative zone. There's and I think we all know it. Like when it's happening, when you're tapping into sort of intuitive creativity, you are using your tools, your skills that you have practiced and learned, and you're executing on them and creating something new from nothing. It's an intoxicating experience. And oftentimes that intoxication leads you to just create without intention. You want to just stay in the flow, ride the wave, go where this goes, right? And I have learned through practice that the more intention you can have and hold before you start creating, the more potent your output can be. Because I think there's something very real to, I do think there's something very real to just opening yourself up and letting it flow, letting just whatever come in. But exercise and putting that intention onto it allows the craft of what you do to also be in the room.
Interesting. That concept is a lot of my intention for this podcast, grind and flow.
Grind and flow.
Grinding, that's a part of the work. Like I think we just talked about the David Byrne quote. It's a creativity. It's like catching a bus.
Yes.
And you
got to be at the bus stop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the flow is like building a sandbox to let that flow go.
And here I think is here's the challenge in that, right? Is that to me, intuition, which is a big part of where I am in my life right now, is just understanding, finding, channeling intuition. And to really hold the concept of intuition, especially creative intuition, you have to hold onto some concept that there is some greater truth. There is some perception beyond ours that is accessible. Now, you can take that as far as you want. Like, I'm into tarot reading. This is my new thing. And I can say, oh, the cards are going to just show me the way. Or I can say, oh, no, I just understand the cards. And I turn them over and I use that understanding to discuss and build a scaffolding of meaning around what we're talking about. Now, to have any belief that a card that I turned over this card, it means something beyond the meaning prescribed to it, that it might have some special meaning, means I have to tap into and hold the truth that there is some force, there's some truth to energy out there, okay? Whether we want to go that new age with it or not, you can stick in just like music creativity and be like, well, there's a reason I'm playing this chord or I feel this melody. There's a reason when I'm writing the string part, it needs to have this tension and release. And if I believe that I can tap into some creative intuition and hold that, then I also have to believe that by forcing the grind on it, by applying my craft and just following the science, I am inhibiting that intuition. So they have to both work together, but also you have to honor the fact that both exist. And holding that duality, I think, is the hardest part, right? Is to say, oh wait, no, I can just roll up my sleeves and do this. I know how to do it. It's just grind it out, get it done. And you have to say, whoa, the world takes more than that. And then creativity necessitates more than that. And therefore, how do I tap into my creative intuition? How do I find my flow? And how do I incorporate that into the busy work of getting it done?
When you say tap into, I keep channeling that line from Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
Tap into America. I'm sorry. So I'm curious, what are you doing right now? Exercising? Commuting? Maybe folding laundry? Whatever it is, your time is valuable, and we appreciate you bringing us along. At some point, please help us get the word out about Grind and Flow. Follow Grind and Flow on your favorite podcast app, as well as Instagram and YouTube. And leave a comment. It would be great to hear from you. Also, tell a friend. Personal podcast recommendations carry a lot of weight. Grind and Flow, creative minds worth spending time with more on the way. A lot of famous songwriters, like the McCartneys and the Dylans, feel like sometimes the song is already in existence somewhere and you're just channeling. Do you believe that? And is that a metaphysical thing, or what's your take on that perspective?
So the idea that a song can exist, prior to the writer discovering it, right? To me, I see that more as a lot of times songs are written, and I've been around it and I've participated in it. Songs are written without a really clear understanding of the meaning. A lot of times we have a vague idea, but the melody, the spirit of a certain word is pushing us in this direction, and it sort of falls into place where you like, oh, this is right? I don't know what it means. And in those sense, I think it's a similar thing where the meaning, it's there and it comes, but you're not able to experience the awareness of that meaning while you're writing, which doesn't take the validation of the writing away, right? There is truth to that. You're tapped into the flow. You're just like, these things all line up. It feels good. It's got to be something. And then you sit down and a year later be like, whoa, okay, that's what we were talking about, right? So.
Wow, that's the remarkable thing about the creative life, I think, right? That keeps us going. We might have talked about the Stephen King analogy when he's, sussing out a new story. It's like an archaeologist, he finds this very fragile clay object.
Yeah.
And he's trying to lift it out of the ground without it breaking apart, or trying to remember a dream.
Yeah. Yeah, same idea.
So is this a new train of thought for you, or is it something you realize, look back and go, reverse engineer, oh, this is what I've been doing?
It's a good question, because I think we're always evolving, I think, as creatives. And I think particularly when it's my living, and it's what I need to do, and I'm driven to do both from a passion standpoint, but also need to continue it. I'm far enough down the road now that this is what I'm going to continue to do, right? There's an evolution in staying, I'm going to say staying sane, but it's really not the right word. It's staying present while I'm doing it, right? I need to not dial it in. I need to not just like downshift and do something that I know will work but doesn't feed me passionately. And that's because music has fed me passionately my whole life. So the idea that I would sort of put on a different jacket and do the same job, I think is horrifying, right? Doesn't mean I can't do it in a different way, but I need to stay present in it. I need to have it still be the thing that is in front of me now, right? So to that point, I'm constantly reevaluating my process, just in my own head. Like what is working? What does it mean to be creative? And I think for me, I've been on a recent trip. I've been on this situation of shifting that around to where I'm privileging the intuition part of it. I'm privileging the maybe just let it flow. I'm practicing the things in my life that make that more accessible, which are oftentimes non-musical. That's a hike, that's a exercise, that's a kind of a mental health, battery recharge, so that when I'm in the seat and in that situation, I feel more potent, right? And so in that sense, I think it is kind of a new thing for me to think of it that way, or to at least to look back at things that I have felt have been successful and say, oh, I see. I was getting out of my own way then. That's what was working, versus chasing positive feedback, which I think is the kind of thing that feeds the grind.
So if you went back in time, 20 years or 25 years,
Yeah.
would younger Brandon have listened to any of this, or would
It's
about the journey, the discovery?
It's so hard to separate that, but I think, one thing that I did looking back that I would like to tell a younger self to not do as much is stay on the road. So I got on the road. I was 24 or 5 years on the road between the train and Sugarland. And at its most, it was, 180, 200 shows a year. So a bulk of the year. And what's great about that is it pays the bills. It's very satisfying to perform for people, and to ride the wave of a successful band is a wonderful joy, right? You feel those crowds grow. You see you participate in these artistic leaps and bounds as you put this on, right? Very satisfying. But in essence, you're repeating kind of one snapshot of the process. And I spent many years doing that instead of kind of exploring other creative outlets and options. Now, the paycheck was good. It was good to have work. But yeah, that's one thing I look back on and think, as many hats as I wear now, as deep as I've had to go in understanding the business end of music and how that influences my opportunities and options that I have. Like, I'm in a unique position that I went from, the end of LPs and CDs heyday to seeing that all go away, right? I got gold records from CD sales, which is sort of a, doesn't really have, it has equivalence happens now, but it's a different thing,
So more creating, less on the road.
Yeah, I think so. Hard to say because those are some pretty special years of my life, but
At what point during your creative journey was there ever a moment that a light bulb went off and like, oh, I've got something here? Like, oh, I've clocked in my 10,000 hours and now this is a thing.
This is working. One of the struggles has been, especially freelancing, I'm often having to figure out how to do the next project that I just got into. So I'll do something, I'll feel like it's successful, I'll get positive feedback from it, and I'll do an iteration of that involves growing and shifting and learning new tools, whether it's technical tools or creative tools, right? And so what has been the most sort of satisfying for me, I just did a string session last week for an artist that we're producing, and it's a beautiful, sad country song that really deserves to hear live strings on it. And so the label was like, let's do it, and get to write a string arrangement, hire the string players, go in. And it is hands down my favorite thing I get to do, because it is, my job is to encapsulate the emotional truth of a song and then direct humans to bring it to life in the most emotive and emotional instruments that exist, which are the string quartet. Right? Then use my other tools, production tools, engineering tools, like to make that all work technically. But in essence, it is just like, what is the truth and sadness in this song, and how do I encapsulate it in music? And if I could do that every day, it would be my choice. That would hands down choose that. There's just not that many options. But I've gotten to do that a handful of times, and there is something, I think at its most expressive, Sugarland played the Nobel Peace Prize concert in Oslo, and
That's remarkable. What a great opportunity.
incredible opportunity. And they have a full orchestra available if you want it. And so we said, of course we want it. Sounds great. Chose a song, and I wrote a full orchestral arrangement to accompany us as the band playing. Then they changed their mind on the song 3 days before we left. And I was like, okay, start over. And spent basically, I slept very little in the 3 days before we got on the plane, starting completely over on a new song. Got there, and I'm hearing it through my monitors as we do our run through. And I'm crying. I'm just overwhelmed because you're just hearing this massive orchestra bring this arrangement to life. We finish the run through, and I walk over to the composer, and I'm like, okay, so I got a couple notes. What do you think? And he goes, okay, I think we should take this out and move this over there. I said, great. And what if we did this? He goes, great. Tells the orchestra what to do, and we go back to play it again. And I was like, I have arrived. I have an orchestra. This is what I want. I want an orchestra at beck and call, and we can just walk over and quickly be like, okay, let's move the line from the basses over to the tubas, and
So how far into your career were you at that point?
I was. That was near the end of our touring career. Sugarland had gotten to the point where, we took a big break after that and came back and did a couple more years of touring, but they had arrived at arenas, and, we were at a comfortable touring era. So that is probably 10 years ago.
And you didn't need a plan B. Let's jump over to that. So many people have different points of view, like when you're aspiring to the life of the creative.
Yeah.
Do you need a plan B?
Yeah.
Or should you not have a plan B so you've got no choice but to make it? So plan B, what is your philosophy?
So my philosophy around this is that, and I'm borrowing this and paraphrasing this from an artist, Matt Nathanson, that we work with a lot. And he is, besides being an amazing songwriter, an amazing singer, and a great human, he is a brilliant thinker. Like, he spends all of his life in his head and has an opinion and a thought about just about everything, and especially music. And one of the things that he shared with me that has really stuck with me is that in his perception, in the world of music, and I'm taking this out of his words and putting it in mine because I don't want to speak for him, but I believe in the world of music, we have kind of lifers and tourists. And we see this a lot on the road, right? There's people who are sort of, they're in to check this out. This is a lot of fun. There's a lot of glamour. There's a lot of joy in it. But continue to make decisions that don't help them perpetuate that life. Because it's hard. It's not an easy life at all. And it really doesn't, it pays for some, but when you get down to it, not a great financial choice to spend your life doing this, right? But very satisfying. And so the advice that I often give people is if you want to make it in this business, whatever your level of success is or your definition of that success, you have to find a way to persist, because it needs to feed you. It needs to bring you joy. It needs to be the thing that you want to do regardless of your measure of the success. It takes time. It takes patience. It takes perseverance. And those things don't work. If it makes you miserable until you're successful, then you won't enjoy it when you're successful. It's just the truth. So, the plan B, I think, is a hindrance for that, right? A plan B often gives you as soon as it gets hard, I'm going to go to my day job and do that thing that I'm ready to do and whatever. But I think it's foolish not to think of life.
Is there an answer in there somewhere? Is there a lane?
Yeah, I think there is. And to me, I think it's foolish not to think of yourself as more than just your interest in playing guitar, right?
So plan
your
B
interest
is a
in
good
playing
thing.
music. So to me, what I've found is that the way my brain works is that I love sort of the mathematical, scientific, analytical side of life. I love it. It feeds me. I like to put things in spreadsheets. It's just how my brain is wired. And so what I've done is figured out how to distribute and promote music. And that is basically my plan B. It's what I do. It's what I love to do. It also serves me, but it's not creative in that aspect. It's not making music. I have to shift over, but we have thousands of copyrights. And those copyrights are everywhere, from video games to TV shows to, to movies, to esoteric subgenres of weirdness. And my job is to sort of explore those things and keep track of them and help people find them and help distribute them to the weird corners of the world. And that's its own job, you know?
So it's cool. It's like a Venn diagram that overlaps, and that you're still kind of sort of in that space. So you didn't have to go totally different.
Yeah.
180.
And I think without that, I wouldn't be satisfied doing this. I think it would be a little, I think it would be disconcerting to not use and apply that part of my brain on a daily basis.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here a quick second and wield a big old neon colored highlighter. Brandon is about to go deep into the key things I aspire to tackle in this podcast. Finding a process, a grind that's helpful and actually healthy for you, and achieving that flow state that can be so fulfilling and productive, but nurturing. It's all here. Now back to Brandon. So what does self-care look like to you? And does your art help feed your soul and heal you?
So it's a good question, and I kind of have two different answers for you because I'm not the same person today that I was in most of my professional career. So I'll explain that. But most of my professional career, self-care was all based around being organized. So it's applying control to chaos, right? And that would really keep me, fed, organized, keep me satisfied, and allow me to then be creative, right? And that's a big part of my life. And I have gone through a very tragic loss in the last couple of years. And so my life through grief has just transformed in a way that self-care is now primary, right? And for me, self-care it's nature, and it's like physical health, basically. And just out of necessity, like the process of grieving is so systemic that it really doesn't matter if I'm organized or not. It doesn't matter if I'm creative or not right now. Like those things don't have an effect on my net health. Only nature and physical movement, physical health, those are the only things. And that I think is, a unique situation, in that sort of I've had this sort of reckoning. But what I've learned through that is the intense value in those things. And so I happen to live in a cabin in the woods, so it's accessible for me too. So quite often I am, I'm in the middle of a very intensive project. I have a musical theater project that I'm transcribing note for note that is getting restaged that we worked on a few years ago, and it's an intense amount of just it involves musical awareness and musical sensitivity, but it is sitting in front of a scoring software going note for note on hours and hours and hours and hours of musical theater, right? Very intense project. I'm either doing that or I am 4 miles down a Forest Service road standing alone. Like it's the only way it works is to kind of balance that.
Okay, being creative can be like, we talked about a sandbox, or like playing for a living. So are you good about sensing when, okay, this play is going away and it's time to back off a little bit?
No, the short answer is no, and I don't think I ever will be. I think that's part of doing this, is sort of staying aware of that and where that line is. But also, you have to be in a routine. And so you have to sit down and create, even when you don't, quote unquote, feel like it or feel the flow. Otherwise, I think you'll be waiting forever. I think you have to sort of kickstart the battery. It's that same idea of you've got to be at the bus stop if the bus shows up. So a lot of times for me, my process involves getting situated, turning things on, starting with a blank slate and putting something down. And I keep a whole bunch of prompts running. And so right now I'm working on a project. I'm creating a fictitious soundtrack to a planetarium show from 1984. I've just kind of made this whole thing up. But what I have is inside my Logic system, I have all the emulated keyboards that would have been available to this fictitious composer in 1984. And so a lot of times I'll start my day because I'm not feeling it, I don't know what's going on. I just bring up a blank template with those things on there and just throw stuff at the wall for the next half hour. And a lot of times it's just junk and it gets thrown away, but it gets the gears going. You know, it keeps you in that seat when you may not feel it.
So how can we bottle that and share it with other folks or younger creatives? Like what are some good ways to generate prompts to get you going?
Well, I think it's a great question. For me, I think it's about not taking yourself too seriously. So the idea that I sit down and like I'm going to make something great today is so inhibiting.
The permission to suck.
The permission to suck. And I think one of the ways I do this is I kind of keep these irreverent, silly projects kind of bubbling up all the time so that I can just jump on one of those for a few minutes, for a little while, and take it where it leads me. But that to me, I think, formulate the process of creating. And a lot of that's the rules. A lot of that's just being free to chase weird ideas, and finding joy in that. And it's very much a, control your space for me. I need my space to be controlled. I need my space to work. If gear's not working, if things are disconnected or whatever, then I just dedicate time to that and that alone, right? Just get stuff up and running so that the next time I sit down, I don't get distracted by, oh, I got to plug this thing. Oh, wait, this thing's not here, so. And then I periodically reevaluate that whole system. So my composing world gets redone probably twice a year, sometimes once a year, where I'm just like, you know what, I'm tired of this workflow. I'm tired of this process. And what would happen if I literally stick this pedal over here and change this keyboard for a different one, and that kind of stuff, so that I don't get too comfortable and familiar with that world.
Was this advice you got from someone, or was this just intuitive you discovered?
That's just practice, yeah. And also just my inherent nature, right? I'm a little bit resistant to stagnation. It's about staying present. It's about what tools, and this I learned from years of touring on the road. A lot of times we're performing material that is the same every night, and production necessitates repetition. So instead of like, let's just play any song we want, or play the song any way we want, or at any tempo we want, a lot of times you really have to start putting rigid boundaries on it so that all the lights come up at the right time and the guitars are handed at the right time. And it necessitates that. So then, how do I perform the same piece of music every night in the same scenario with that presence that it deserves? Because all these people came tonight. They didn't come last night, they came tonight. So exercises in staying present in that environment are super helpful in all of these other worlds, because it's the same muscle. It's like, how do I not just dial this in? What do I need to shake up to be present today?
Well, that sounds like a very higher level of thinking. Have you been able to articulate it for a long time, or is it just a recent discovery for you?
No, I think that's a little insight, and I hear you say higher level of thinking. I don't consider that sort of, don't take this the wrong way. That's just how my brain works.
Right.
I intellectualize before I feel it emotionally.
Was that something like a mentor taught you, or someone taught you, or you read, or you came to that
I think
realization?
that's just me trying to fit a spreadsheet onto my weird creative life. That's like me trying to, it needs to be a system so that I can then apply it.
Begin with the end in mind.
Yes, that's about putting the rules on the wall before you start the project, right? Like, know what you're doing. Even if it doesn't turn out to be that, start with intention.
What are ways you would recommend to build that muscle of being present?
Yeah. To me, self-awareness. I think it's the biggest hurdle. I think that, we grow up as humans, we learn our life lessons, particularly in music. You start doing something, you get positive feedback from it, it becomes part of your identity, feeds your ego. It does all the things to keep you from being present. It starts to inflate your perception of who you are based on what you could become. And I think it's such a trap. It's a healthy learning thing, but I think you have to, for me, I was in my 30s and 40s before I really started to like show up as a human being, because I had been really busy being a musician.
That's remarkable.
And you got to just be, this is what we do, is we're humans interacting with humans, reflecting the human experience. If you're not human, then, why do it?
Now, is this wisdom you naturally impart to some of the young artists you work with, or do they come to you for this advice, or does it just kind of come up in conversations?
I think we definitely get to this level of conversation in the studio a lot. Okay. And I think it comes up, primarily because you are collaborating with people. You have to be able to see past ego. You have to be able to let go of the perception of yourself versus what you really think. And so we get deep in some of our writing rooms because you have to be there.
And that was Brandon Bush with The Good Word, y'all. His music is coming soon to a device or experience near you. You're hearing some of it right now. You also heard his tracks in the transitions throughout the episode. Meanwhile, the second Darkwater album, One Step Ahead of the Robot, is set to drop September 5th. Learn more at darkwatermusic.com and brandonbush.com. And that's it for the latest Grind and Flow. Please follow us on your favorite podcast app. Also, the Grind and Flow official accounts on Instagram and YouTube. See ya.